Cutter is a cutting tool for cutter suction dredger to cut underwater soil. Driven by the prime mover, it rotates to cut the soil layer, and causes the soil layer separated by cutting to be deformed, broken and mixed with water to form slurry, which is fed into dredge pump by suction port in cutter cavity. In order to improve the cutting ability of cutter, people design open cutter, closed cutter, toothed grain cutter and other types of cutter according to different working conditions and soil types. But no matter what kind of cutter, there are positive cutter and reverse cutter in the cutting process. When the transverse direction of the cutter ladder is the same as the rotation direction of the cutter, this is called positive cutter cutting. At this time the resistance of cutter to overcome the cutting soil comes from the self-weight pressure of cutter and its ladder. In general, when the cutting of the soil is relatively soft, whether it is positive knife or reverse knife, cutter can cut normally, but when the cut soil is relatively hard, in other words, when the resistance of soil layer to cutter cutting is greater than the self-weight pressure of cutter ladder, the phenomenon of climbing cutter or hob will appear, which makes cutter cutting more difficult. In order to solve the low efficiency of cutter in cutting hard soil, a bucket wheel cutter was designed. The biggest difference between bucket wheel cutter and common cutter is that its rotation line and the axis of ladder are not coaxial, but intersect 90 degrees. That is what makes the bucket wheel cutter move left or right in the process of cutting, the cutting form similar to reverse cutter, thus effectively solving the problem of climbing and hob when the soil resistance is greater than the self-weight pressure of cutter ladder in the cutting process, and greatly improving the efficiency of cutting hard soil.